Gamshi Lakwan, welcome to DiversiTV, the weekly interview show broadcast live from Lane Community College main campus. I'm Mark Harris, your host, and I'll introduce our guests shortly. If you're new to DiversiTV, welcome. If you're part of our growing fan base, secret and known, welcome back. DiversiTV's mission is to illuminate everyday diversity issues and give the mic and the camera to those who don't always get it. To that end, we have an array of guests that this season basically our focus has been looking at systems, community-wide systems. And to that end, on the general rubric of diversity, which Lane Community College defines in a variety of ways, considering ethnicity, class, I'm an alcohol and drug counselor, so we deal with drugs of choice, geography, and various other forms of technology and culture. So to illuminate everyday diversity issues and give the mic and the camera to those who don't always get it. So we've been looking at systems, and our guests have ranged from Rosalia Marquez, who's the multicultural liaison from Springfield Public School District, Patricia Cortez with the Latino Youth Perspective, William Wise, who runs a shelter for homeless families, The Art of Recovery with African American artist Craig Lasha. Last week we had Hunger in Lane County with Caitlin Hendrickson, who is Food for Lane County's multicultural liaison, and this week we have David Yuen Tam, who's president of the Chinese American Benevolent Association. This is the year of the tiger. We just celebrated Chinese New Year. Now, part of what I like to think of as the crouching tiger is that represents a calendar from a culture that basically has a complex urban civilization, and that's the hidden dragon. So when you have 5,000 years of complex urban civilization behind you, that's a lot of weight, and people tend to often underestimate them if they don't necessarily have any dealings with them. So our guest has been also collaborating for some time with the Oregon Asian celebration, which just happened last month. Also, some of our extended friends also, I'm just giving a shout out to Disorient, the Asian American Film Festival of Oregon, coming up next month. The Bijo Art Cinemas, and also in Portland to be arranged. And the Disorient Asian Film Festival is a social justice film festival dedicated to deconstructing the media stereotypes of Asians and Asian Americans as, quote, Orientals. We believe in the power of film as art to educate, heal, and improve the lives of people by giving voice to their experiences. Now, the Chinese American Benevolent Association sponsors lion dancers pictured here. This is at the University of Oregon. Is that where that is? It's from the Facebook.
I believe so.
Yeah. Now, the Lion Dance Troupe are sponsored by CABA and have been dancing for 20 years. The dance troupe is comprised of middle and high school youth who train weekly for the lion dance. They're recruited annually to participate, and since older youth move on to allow younger youth to participate, the lion dancers perform throughout Oregon at various community events and private functions. The lion dance is part of an important tradition in China and usually performed as part of the Chinese New Year festivities. If well performed, the lion dance is believed to bring luck and happiness. Although lions are not native to China, they came there via the famous Silk Road. The rulers in what is today Iran and Afghanistan sent lions to Chinese emperors as gifts in order to get the right to trade with Silk Road merchants. And the dances themselves date back to the Han Dynasty, about 205 before the Common Era, and during the Tang Dynasty. The lion is enacted by two dancers. One handles the head, made of strong but light materials like paper mache and bamboo. The other plays the body and the tail under a cloth that is attached to the head. The animal is accompanied by 3 musicians playing large drum, cymbals, and a gong. A little Buddha teases it with a fan or a giant ball. The head of the dancer can move the lion's eyes, mouth, and ears for expression or moods. Now, the youth often combines art, history, and kung fu moves. Normally the performers are kung fu practitioners. Every kind of move has a specific musical rhythm. The music follows the moves of the lion, the drum follows the lion, the cymbals and the gong follow the drum player. So our guest tonight, David Tam, president of the Chinese American Benevolent Association. Welcome.
Thanks, Mark.
Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Depot Bay, Oregon.
Depot Bay?
Yeah, small little fishing town over on the coast, south of Lincoln City, north of Newport. My heritage is my parents are from southern China, Guangzhou area. Also, some people know China as Taishan. So that's originally where I'm coming from. My parents are from a small area, actually.
Now, the reason when I usually ask that question, because a lot of people don't. I'm a transplant. A lot of people are transplants. But as we were talking before the show, the history of Turtle Island, that is what we refer to in English as North, Central, and South America, Chinese people actually came here before Europeans, and even though that is some controversy, the natives basically back up that story. So even if you wanted to do the archaeological evidence and say before Columbus, I mean, there's evidence to back that up. And that's consonant with having complex urban civilization, capable of building pyramids, and engaging in world trade. So there's often that stereotypical question, oh, well, where are you from? Like, you're not from here, right?
Absolutely.
And you are. Right. Native Oregonian, right?
True native Oregonian, but it's very true. I mean, it's kind of funny. I faced that question before when I was younger. They asked me, said, so are you Oriental or are you Chinese? And I said, well, I don't understand the question. I'm not a rug. I'm actually Chinese, if you want to answer that. So I get a lot of interesting questions about where I'm from. When people ask me that, I mean, there's 3 types of questions. One, I was raised in Depot Bay. I was born in Portland, Oregon, and I'm from my mother's womb. So which answer do you like?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's always a challenging point, but I tell them, I'm Asian American, and I'm really proud of my background, my culture, and I think we all should be.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you do? How did you come to Eugene? I mean, born in Portland, raised in Depot.
Well, the beauty of it is that I was an avid track person. So I ran track for Western, and then I was at Western. It was so gloomy and didn't like it. And I ran track in Eugene when I was young as a youth, and loved Eugene's atmosphere, loved the whole track environment. I was so gung-ho about it. And when we came from the coast to run in Eugene on Eugene trails, it was such a beautiful place. And I really wanted that dream to become a duck and run for a U of O.
Distance?
Yeah, well, I did a lot of distance before, but then I eventually became a jumper. Okay. And so I did a lot of jumping stuff. But then, so I kind of worked my way and got here to, actually came to LCC first, which when I first came to Eugene, I kind of decided one day, when I was at Western, I was like, I'm tired of Western, and I want to go to Eugene. And I packed my truck up, drove like 2 o'clock in the morning, drove to Eugene. Next day, just rented a quad and enrolled in LCC like the next day, and kind of did that. And then I went to U of O, and it was just a great thing to be a part of the experience. Just because I'm proud to be a duck. I'm proud of Eugene. It's a beautiful place to be, and I loved it so much. After I graduated, I decided to stay here. And I kind of got involved in the community. I became a business person in this community, and just loved the whole vibe of it.
International business consultant, huh?
Yeah. It's been an interesting journey as it's been through, but international business consulting became a passion of mine. My father and I were in the import-exporting business. My father still is, for many years. So I used to do buy trips with my father and travel to China. And my dad's like, hey, you're young, you should come to China with me, go on these buy trips, and look at other opportunities, because China is definitely a land of opportunity if you know what you're doing. And when I went over there, I just saw so much stuff. I remember my very first trip I went there, the pollution was so bad, and my body wasn't used to it. I was actually sick for like 3 to 4 days.
My daughter reported that too. Where in Beijing?
No, actually I was in Guangzhou.
Oh, okay.
And so I went to Hong Kong and Guangzhou, and when I got there, it was just so terrible, and I wasn't used to it. My parents wanted me to take me back to their farm where they were raised at, my dad and my mother in the area. And when went to the countryside, they have all these holes in the ground as toilets, and just living in the very much of the true country and seeing where my parents came from, gave me a deep appreciation for what we have in America.
Yeah.
Gave me a great appreciation for what my parents have struggled and strived through to give me the opportunity that I have being here. And by also being over there, I saw lots of opportunity. I was like, wow, there's so much stuff going on here. Everyone's just, trying to survive. And, that really kind of gave me an insight to not only one, being proud of my homeland country, as my native country, I mean, but also give me ideas like, what needs do these people have? So
what do you see?
So what I see is, I see a lot of pollution, a lot of, human rights abuse issues going on over there, a lot of capitalism, a lot of people being taken advantage of. I mean, I always make this joke when I do businesses that, be careful of the Chinese, because sometimes the Chinese will end up selling their own grandmother if they could at times. It's a very cutthroat because everyone's trying to survive. China has one of the highest unemployment in the world. Their main natural resource is labor, and it's like you have a country that is so strong and so powerful and has so much beauty to it, but they're not taking advantage of that. It's like wasting away. I mean, you literally see these beautiful rivers and these great sceneries that you see on TV, but what you see on TV is not really what you see on the ground.
Right.
I mean, I've been to places where I've actually seen sludge, toxic waste in the water going through it, and it's just terrible crime. These waterways, and you see these fish, well, they're supposed to be fish, and it looks great in scenery, but it's really not. It's really highly polluted. The air quality is very bad. There was a time I was there for like almost a month. I never saw the sun. Like, I knew it was there, but the haze was so bad that you couldn't really see the sun.
So no EPA?
Not really. Yeah. So that's kind of how I came to become an international business consultant, because people knew that I traveled there a lot. And so I was in the financial planning world beforehand. A lot of people came to me and said, and most of my clients were business people. And they would say, hey, I know you do a lot of China. Do you know anyone that can get this for me? Because you're talking about an economy in the United States. People are trying to outsource.
Yes.
Trying to increase their profit margins. And I was like, yeah, I know someone that can get that manufactured for you. I know someone that can do this for you. And so what I was doing, I was connecting these people all the time. And a lot of people came to me and said, I spent $500,000 trying to get in the Chinese market through this product, or I was going to suppliers and they took my money and ripped me off. And these things I hear all the time. And so what happened is essentially, in America I'm hearing one need, and in China there's a need, and talking about generating capitalism and money here, I said, well, here's great. I know how to connect the two bridges together, so to say, make the connections happen. And people found great value in that. What happened over my time was I was doing a lot of manufacturing, which was great. But what happened is I started to become more aware of the environment. And I saw all the ecological aspects of what was going on, the devastation that was going on. And it made me very aware of a lot of things I wasn't aware of. For example, we have these Prius green vehicles, but there are certain compounds in these fuel-efficient vehicles
that are pretty
that are
nasty.
very difficult to extract. And the extraction process is actually very not green. So you spend all this effort and time and money extracting, I won't say exactly what it is, but different compounds to creating this green technology, but the process was actually very devastating to the land. So I've really focused my attention a lot on green technology.
And you don't see that as, you just see,
of course. Of course, you never see it. You say we're creating a green product, but what does it take to actually be green? For example, we have these green paper products, paper plates, paper bowls. Well, how do they harvest the bamboo? How do they get it from transport from one location to another location? Is that a green process or not? Is it considered green? So the end result may be green itself, but the process is not necessarily green. And so that kind of draw a lot of awareness for me, and I became say, hey, I need to let other people know about this. And so now most of my company, all we do is green technology. It's finding technologies out there that are green that can help remediate toxic situations or environmentally damaging situations, and creating partnerships on a global scale to bring it closer, and working with these partners saying, hey, what do we need to do? I work with, I've worked with ELAW, locally here. Wang Xingfa. Wang Xingfa is known as he was named Time Magazine Environmental Hero of the Year back a couple of years ago. He is a top attorney who is an environmental law attorney in Beijing. He actually is part of the process of developing the whole program and the laws around considering green and holding companies to be environmentally social. You know, and then the whole process is very difficult, especially in China. It's a huge task. You're talking about David and Goliath, you know. But partnering up with these type of people, bringing awareness, bringing solutions to the table. The problem in here, for America, for example, we say, oh, well, we want to be green, but we don't know how. Or like, you know, people like Aaron Brockovich's situation. Aaron Brockovich sued a large corporation saying you're contaminating all the water. Attorneys are great at bringing evidence to the table and saying what you're doing wrong. And in China, we can go to every company and criticize them, say, you're not doing this right, you're not doing this right, you're being really wrong and damaging this and this. But the problem is
we don't... Is that culturally appropriate?
Not so much culturally appropriate, but it's becoming more of an acceptable thing, you know. There's an attorney that works with Wang Xingfa. She's also the only female Aaron Brockovich of China. She successfully sued a company for dumping liquids into a river, harming people, and she actually sued them for, you know, fairly decent amount, nothing compared to U.S. dollars, but it was the first major victory. But, you know,
did they clean up their act?
They did to a degree, but here's my point, as I get into is that we can complain to people all we want, but my point is I'm a solutions person. It's like, you're polluting the water, you're doing all these things environmentally, but then we'll fine you $100,000, but does that make you stop doing it? Because you didn't give them a solution. You fine them for a problem, but you don't give them a solution. That's where we come into play. Or we come into play and we say, okay, we understand what your problem is. Let us help you find a solution to that.
Yeah. What I meant by culturally appropriate is, okay, you can shame someone by, you know, exposing their wrongdoing, but does that actually get you the result that you want?
It doesn't really, because people will, you know, there's a lot of greasing of the palms, so to say, that happens over there. And it's like, well, shame on you,
that happens here, right?
What's the big deal? It's like a child.
Yeah.
You say, shame on you for doing this, and then it's like, okay, well, they let it go, and later they might do it again, or they let it continue on. So you really have to nip the situation in the bud. But the problem is that China's so vast that you really can't today. It's like it's going to take a huge amount of work on a global scale to really solve the problem.
Yeah, and you'll have to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've been very proud to be a part of that. It's definitely very difficult work to do, but I believe that if every person gives at least 1% effort into helping the environment, we can, as numbers, we can make a change. But as one or two people, we cannot.
Well, and as China begins to play an increasingly greater and greater role in our daily lives, what can we do on an individual level to assist that process, you think?
Well, I think it's really about holding people accountable from America's side and from China's side. There's a lot of capitalistic business that goes on, and America turns a blind eye to it, and China turns a blind eye to it, you know. But it's about just being aware. It's about learning the facts. It's about knowing things. A good example is the lead-based paint. So most people don't know this, but during the early 70s, when America banned lead-based paint in America, they said you cannot use lead-based paint anymore. A lot of these paint companies actually took their product that they had and they sold it to a country that was emerging and that needed, you know, paint product. Well, who do you think you bought it?
Right.
Okay, and then who do you think stockpiled it?
So it's coming back.
And it came back.
Yeah.
But people will tend to question that and say, is that really valid or not? If you do your research and you find it in depth, you can trace it, you can track it. But where do you think all the lead-based paint went?
Right.
Do you think they destroyed it?
Right.
Do you think it's sitting in storage in America's soil right now?
Yeah, where do you think past pull date pharmaceuticals, et cetera, go too? Right.
Well, and that's the point. Right. So the lead-based paint, even though it was blamed in America, the media spun it off as, oh, it was China and it was their product. Don't get me wrong, okay, it's fine. But also being in the business, I know that when you send product to America from China, the customs, they want to know every little detail of what's in the product. They want to know every little detail of what chemicals in it. They want to know what material that you've used. These have all been looked over. So you have to understand that they knew that lead was in the paint. They knew that a percentage of it was.
Yeah. But
you have a miscommunication between customs and between regulatory people. And so customs saw and said, okay, well, maybe it's not a big issue, but then regulators saw and said, oh, this is way above legal limits, so you can't do that. So is there blame to be on China? I will agree, yes. But also I think there's a blame to be shared around all levels there. You know what I mean? And I think you kind of have to go back to the whole story. America does a great job covering up the media and not really exposing the whole truth of it all. But I discussed with other people, and other people said, "Well, show me proof." And actually, you know, I can.
You can.
Yeah, I can show that. But the thing is that, you know, it is what it is, and you know, it's like the whole World Trade Center. You know, do you know a portion of the steel didn't all go into building a ship? A lot of the steel was sold to China. Do you know that fact? And that can be traced as well, because you know these all the steel from the World Trade Centers to build this boat. Yeah. Beautiful concept, definitely worthy. But also a lot of steel was sold to China because China's buying a lot of steel. They're buying scrap metal. I mean, there's all these things that people don't realize, but it happens. I mean, another atrocity is computer monitors. Your computer monitors have a lot of lead, right, and other chemicals in it. Right. Before
for the clarity of the glass.
Well, before they were actually taking this material, these computer monitors, and sending them to China, and saying, "Oh, we're going to donate them to schools." Well, it worked to a point, but also a good majority of those were being burned in fields. So to dispose of it, because they had nowhere to put it. You know, or other examples, they take the computer monitor, send them down to Mexico to disassemble and to so-called recycle. Well, there's a lot of portions that you cannot recycle. Well, what happens is that it gets sent to China to be destroyed. And it's destroyed by paying these villagers $10 a day to sit there with masks, breathing these fumes of mass burning of all the chemicals going into our air. But then
coming here.
Well, yeah, of course it's traveling
because
here.
Because the air currents, right, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of atrocities that happen. Right. I won't get into all the details of it, but the point being is that if people really do their homework, I mean, I'm definitely not saying China's the greatest country, they're innocent by all means. But I mean, I definitely say that, you know, we really need to follow the trail. And I think that, you know, in China there's tons of crimes happening against humanity, on not only on a national scale in China, but on a global level. The pollution factor is just astronomical. But, you know, that's a whole other discussion that could take a long time.
Well, I mean, and as far as, you know, America goes, I mean, not that that I'm not known for disparaging, you know, this country, the country we were born in, but I mean, we bear a lot of that responsibility of teaching people bad habits and allowing those bad habits to go on.
Absolutely.
Well, wake up, little computer. What is the Chinese American Benevolent Association? How long has it been around, and what are its goals? Because I looked around, I did some research, and they've existed for a long time.
They've existed a lot longer than most people know. Yeah. It's actually 30 plus years. The exact number.
That's here.
Yeah, here in Eugene. That exact number, I'm not exactly sure. Yeah. But Ada Lee, who was one of the founders, and Vern Ho was one of the founders, the late Vern Ho. Yeah. Couple of people, they actually used to meet, and these were all Chinese restaurant owners, and they would meet in the back of someone's restaurant and eat at 1 or 2 in the morning and discuss, you know, what can they do and discuss what's going on. That's kind of the first fundamental foundation starts of Kaaba. It's like, you know, they want to support each other, you know, at first, and that's kind of why we're the Benevolent Association is that the concept is when people come to Eugene and they're Chinese descent, or any descent, and they need some support, assistance. Maybe they're new to apartments, maybe they don't understand the law, maybe they want, you know, to buy a car. Is that the whole fundamental idea was to support these people, you know, get them acclimated to their new fish tank, so to say, and really to give them support, you know, get their kids enrolled in school, get them a job, whatever it may be. It was a group that was called upon to share the resources and knowledge pool, and saying, who can we talk to help these people with their situation? That's how it kind of first started, and it kind of evolved into getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And our association is actually still one of the smallest as far as board member size. Yeah, yeah. We have very few people, but our small group does quite a bit. You know, there's myself as the president, my vice president is Jason Mack, which you know as well. You know, we have people like Pamela Kwan's on the board. We have variety of people, you know, Ada Lee, of course, is still very, very involved in the group. But really the whole fundamental idea is just to support and to spread a culture, to let people become more involved and just kind of have this whole holding hand experience with sharing resources together to support each other. And not only supporting the Chinese community, but supporting the Filipinos, the Japanese, the Koreans, and everyone else, which is very unique, let me say, in Eugene.
Yeah.
in Eugene, the reason why is that, for example, in Portland, the Chinese, the Korean, the Japanese, they all have their own circles, and these circles don't meld very well because of past history.
Right.
You know, and also because of
a lot of past history.
Right, a lot of past history.
Yeah.
I mean, we have people still from World War II that experienced, you know, the Japanese invasion of China. Right. But there was a lot of that bad blood. And here in Eugene, we're so small and we're so knit is that we don't hold that. You know, it's like, I wasn't in the war, so don't be mad at me. I didn't do that to your ancestors, so don't be mad at me kind of feeling. But not only that, but we're here to support each other because we're so small, and the Asian communities are small in general, that we want to support each other. And you'll see Chinese people attending the Filipino, the Korean, the Japanese events, everything else, and it's not looking at them like, who are you? It's looking at them as a brother or a sister, as a family. You know, we don't see them as a Korean. You know, I don't see you as an African American. I see you as another human being. You know, that's really all we are. We come from different cultures, different backgrounds, but we all have respect and love for each other. In Portland, they tried to do this event called Asia Fest, which hasn't really launched off the ground for a variety of reasons. But the main reason
You think it's local politics?
That is one of the main reasons, is local politics and past history.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to get the groups to work together efficiently.
I mean, there's some irony. Let's talk about this for a little bit, because, you know, we're both involved, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, about, you know, a community organizing effort, right? So I teach ethnic studies here, so one of the things I look at is the ancient trading relationships. Now, what was going on 5,000 years ago between Africa and China? It's like, all right, we're both cultivating bread, you know, bread molds for penicillin. We're both building pyramids. You know, we're shipping elephants to China. You know, China. Yeah, I mean, it goes back and forth for a long time, right? And then, you know, we come, you know, to America, and then we come to an America, you know, after it became America, because we were both here before Columbus. You know, both our folks were here before Columbus, dealing with, you know, the native folks. And then we come here after it becomes America, and then we face discrimination. I mean, that, you know, ironically, having studied the history, there are actually 2 white U.S. senators that, when they were basically trying to determine, okay, we need this territory before the British, so how are we going to do this? Let's send Chinese people to civilize the Native Americans in Oregon. And, okay, well, that's an interesting idea. I mean, like, they want to do that, like they haven't met before. That's one piece. And then we get to the exclusion laws, right, where both African Americans and Chinese people are named by name as being excluded in the Constitution. Right. Right? So that, you know, I had spoken with Mrs. Lee about this, about, okay, the early days where, okay, people of color were not allowed to live within this town, and that, even though there was also an early Chinese presence from the beginning, not only the beginning of the state, but also the beginning of Eugene. Right. And going back to the early 20s, not that she necessarily knew about that, but, you know, when I know from the early, from talking to early African American residents, what used to be the Chinese restaurant next to the railroad station was one of the few restaurants that black people could actually eat at. Right? So, you know, that there's that shared history, shared oppression, et cetera, and how do we respond to that? Because, you know, not everybody can set up a welcome wagon. And in some ways, the Asian community kind of, it's not the model minority thing. It's kind of like sliding in under the radar. It's not like you didn't face active discrimination. Let's be clear about that. That never happened where it was totally safe. Never. But they're not necessarily going to, like, burn crosses or burn down businesses, even though that probably could have happened too. I mean, that did happen in a lot of places, you know, massacres and all that kind of stuff that we saw. So I guess what I'm getting at in terms of looking at that welcoming vibration, for lack of a better word, where, you know, we're going to help each other and we're going to reach out across ethnic lines. Sounds like that got established fairly early in a way that didn't happen. Eugene has definitely a very interesting history. I mean, I've talked with a lot of elders before, and a good friend of mine, Steve Williamson from Nouveau, you know, talks about history.
even when Ada said she came here, you know, she felt a lot of love from a lot of people, but then of course there were those people. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but Eugene is really not that diverse. I mean, that's just the reality.
There's no Chinatown. I mean, I've never lived in a place where there's no ethnic neighborhoods, right? So there is a Chinatown in Portland.
Right.
There is, you know, North and Northeast Portland, the hood, so to speak, being gentrified. But that never was allowed to happen here.
Well, it was very interesting. I mean, the Japanese were interned here. We have the Japanese internment park area. We had, you know, a lot of, even when the Koreans came here with Hynix, there was a lot of people who came out of the woodwork who were not very, let's say, color friendly.
Shall we say?
To say the least.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, the past history, some people don't know, is that, you know, Oregon, we have one of the West Coast headquarters for the KKK down south. You know, and they're still out there. Yeah. But welcoming committee, being comfortable, has always been something that has been of interest to me. Again, as I said, I grew up in Depot Bay, and growing up in a all Caucasian school. Right. I was the model minority. Yeah. You know, so I was like one of the only Asians. There was another Asian gentleman that was there, but he was a Korean American that was adopted by a Caucasian family. And then we had some foreign exchange student that came in and said, "Oh my goodness, what are we doing here?" But I faced racism and discrimination a lot when I was very young. In a very early age, I experienced it very well, and I've learned how to deal with it very, very well. And but it's always, that's kind of my passion. That's kind of why I got that drive to become a part of CABA, become the president, and become so involved in the Asian celebration, the Asian Council, everything else, is because I want to work with kids. My two passions are children and culture. And I want them to understand, to be part of where they came from, and to be a part of who they are, and to break that myth. I don't eat rice 3 times a day. I eat pizza like everyone else does. You know, I've never tasted dog. You know, I mean, these are all things.
Or scorpion, or whatever.
Scorpion, I have. I also I have.
Okay.
So I can't say that one. But the point being is that, you know, that's kind of really, you know, key, is to let people understand what is the Asian American culture. You know, I have a unique experience. Not what is the Asian culture. That's a great part too. But I have the Asian American culture. Whereas my generation, my youth, we have the two cultures collide. We have at home, we have the traditional Chinese parents, and at school we have the American culture. You know.
Bilingual?
Yes, bilingual. Okay. But how, you know, so we have the experience. How do we navigate around that as youth? Right. You know, so Jason Mack and myself and other people who went through that. I'm actually the very first of both sides of my family to be born in the States. Okay. So, you know, I'm really the first one to experience a lot of that and feel the pressures. Should I marry a Chinese girl? Should I be arranged in a marriage? You know, is it okay to start dating someone not Chinese? You know, being that position where I have to translate for my parents sometimes. But now they speak, you know, like English, but my mom still doesn't read English that well at all. You know, and the challenges that we face as Asian Americans, and let alone facing discrimination and racism issues. Right. But hey, I'm an American too. Yeah. I had someone talk to me in one of the classes that Ensemble teaches here. He said, if China and America went to war, who would you go after? Would you support the Chinese or would you support the American?
Who would you go after? Wow.
And who would you support in the war?
Yeah, right, right.
And I told him very directly this. I said, if China invaded America and the Chinese put a gun to my head, I guarantee I'm going to whoop his ass. I don't care if he's Chinese or not. You know what I mean? Just because my background, my native background is I'm Chinese, doesn't mean I support China. You know? It's like whoever's threatening me and my family, that's who I'm going to go after. So it's not a race issue in my mind. Right. It's a human issue. Right. If one human is threatening me as another human, then of course.
I identify with the country I was born in.
Exactly. Right. I mean, there was a time where I almost enrolled in the military when I was out of high school, and my mom freaked out, and that never happened. Thank goodness, by the way. But you know, it's you get those questions. Right. Who do you support? What are your beliefs? Where are you from? That's always the question. Well, here's a simple answer.
Yeah. Portland, America.
We're humans. My mother's womb. Right. What do you want me to tell you? Yeah. You know, but CABA's been great because of the fact that I'm able to influence, or not necessarily influence, but share my perspective a lot. You know, CABA, we support a lot of the Asian celebration. We're very, very involved in that. Have been involved in that since the beginning of time, since celebration started. You know, Ada Lee was one of the instrumental people who started this many, many years ago. And then, you know, we've a small group but very powerful. And then we also had the Discordant Film Festival, an event that started, now it's in its 5th year. When it first started, everyone was like, oh, that won't survive, it won't make it,
right,
you know.
Right.
But it's gotten so much attention, so much draw. We're actually expanding, going up I-5 to Portland now, you know. And why do we do these events? Why do we put so much love and effort into the volunteering, you know, in these events when we have day jobs, of course?
Right.
But it's because we believe in that. We want to share our culture. We want to share the experiences with other people. We want them to understand what does it mean to be Asian or Asian American. And not only that, but also we want people to take a look at themselves. Look at yourself. Look at where you're from. Become proud of where you're from. When I've given talks in classes before, you know, I've had people come up to me and they're Caucasian. They're like, oh, you know, I wish I had a culture. I wish I had a heritage I could share with other people like you do. I'm like, you do.
You do, right.
But you need to go back and identify with that.
What
Find
is
out
that?
what is
were
it.
you before you were,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just because you're Caucasian doesn't mean you don't have a culture, don't have a history. You absolutely do, and be proud of that. You know, so I'm not saying, oh, I'm
it's
Chinese,
really hard
I'm
to
better.
get that across to them. It's really strange that way. I mean, look, we were both born in America, right? But we experienced prejudice. So, you know, there's a certain limit to the way I basically describe it is, okay, let's say that 100 years is like 1 year to a human. So therefore, if your culture is like 1,000 years old, then you're a 10-year-old. Really.
Right.
So America is like a 2-year-old, and let's say Western civilization, let's date it back to, you know, after the Renaissance. So we're still talking like less than 1,000 years here, right? So if you got, I mean, it takes a while to develop a calendar. So I mean, that's what I said at the beginning, at the top of the broadcast about, okay, China has an over 5,000 year calendar, even if we were going to say 3,700 years. That's
still quite a bit.
That's still quite a bit. So even though it's not the same culture today that it was way back then, you still have all that history to deal with. You know, Mao did not erase that.
Right.
You know, I mean, nice try, but no. Okay, whatever. You know, so in terms of basically looking at not only, you know, the martial arts phenomenon, you know, can you go to a Chinese restaurant and, you know, order off the menu or whatever in the native language, whatever it is. I mean, you have some history back there and advanced culture to fall back on, in addition to this new land that we've both been born into, that we can bring some perspective.
Absolutely. You know, it's just it's been a phenomenal experience, and learning quite a bit growing up, and learning perspectives, learning the history, learning the culture. I still learn stuff on the culture every day, you know, and then just embracing that. But there's a lot of history that's involved that people tend to overlook.
Yeah.
But history is really what is our fundamental basis for where we go in the future. We always try to say, don't repeat histories of the past if they're not positive. You know, so I think that's really going to be a key issue, is we have to look back to what had happened in the past. Let's not repeat those same mistakes again and try to focus on moving forward. And I think that China is really learning a lot of that. I think America's learning that. I think everyone's really learning that nowadays. But, you know, it's all a race to save the planet, number one, and save mankind, number two.
Right. And let's hope that we do that. So, you know, when you're talking about, say, the dichotomy between Lao Tzu and Sun Tzu, in terms of philosophy, you know, one of the things that I've often admired, especially in our current collaboration, we can talk about, you know, the politics in Portland, but on the politics of Eugene, is in terms of dealing with race relations. And when we're fighting racism, stereotypically and archetypally, African Americans find that confrontation, direct, in-your-face confrontation, is the way to go. What I've always admired is the ability to do the backroom deal.
Yes. I
Behind the scene.
kind of get an idea where this is going to go.
But, you know, in terms of, let's start with that Portland situation that you're talking about. Okay, all right, they didn't get that off the ground because of politics. Can you talk about that? What was the division that was going on?
The division is just that there's too many elders that had bad blood.
Okay, yeah.
You know, had bad blood, cultural differences were one. You know, and here's another point I'll bring out, and people may argue this with me all they want, but Asian people, I will say Asian people, are probably the most racist people. And you probably are going to say, how is that so? But if within the circles...
Go ahead and answer that. Well, one, they've had longer to be racist as a world power.
Well, not only that, but they're racist among themselves.
Yeah.
The Chinese don't like the Japanese don't like the Chinese, the Koreans got caught in the middle of the wars, they don't like anyone.
Right.
You know, and it's just a lot of bad blood that had happened in the past. But a lot of that is being erased.
Yeah.
By the generation.
By globalization?
By globalization,
yeah,
but by also the younger generation coming to the front.
Right.
And understanding that the planet is too small.
Yeah.
Okay. But it is very true. I mean, it's fairly sad. But you know, I mean, being Chinese, and people are like, oh, I hear people like, oh, don't deal with African American people, you know, because they place these stereotypes, and there's so many stereotypes in the Chinese culture, Asian culture. It's not even funny. You know, a lot of them still live by the old wives' tales, even.
Yeah.
But what we're able to do here, though, Eugene, is to break that. We don't see it that way. And that is why I'm so proud to be part of this community. I'm so, not only just the Asian community, but Eugene community as a whole, is because we don't have to face a lot of the barriers other people do within their own circles, so to say, like Portland, for an example.
Right.
You know, Portland, by the way, great people in Portland, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the organizations just don't commingle very well sometimes.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and that's
there's a lot of, there has been divide and conquer stuff going on too. Let's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's more Chinese benevolent type of organizations up there than there are, I think, total organizations in Eugene alone.
Wow.
There's so many little chapters of the Chinese whatever group, the Chinese whatever group, and it's like, well, why don't you guys pool your resources together for a common goal, rather than fighting for dollars to survive your organization, number one, and rather than putting all these different various organizations. I mean, Chinese New Year, for example, there's over 60-some different Chinese New Year events happening around Portland by various Chinese groups, from little small ones like different churches to big ones, you know. But it's an interesting dichotomy, you know. But like, you know, even in Eugene, we have a little bit of fraction of the Chinese. We have the Taiwanese, and we have the Chinese, and even the Chinese, there's the church, and then there's the non-church, and then, you know, there's different fragments here too. But
Christians, Buddhists, you know, Muslims,
Catholics,
Uyghurs, whatever, yeah.
But the bottom line is even though we had come from different backgrounds and perspectives, we see each other, we all agree with each other, we all, you know, welcome each other. I don't look at someone and say, well, you know, you're a Christian and I'm not going to like you. That's not the case at all. You know, we don't see it that way. But others do. And it happens among other groups. I mean, the Japanese, you know, they divide by religion as well. The Koreans very well divide by religion as well. I mean, there's different Korean churches and they fight amongst each other and don't agree. But, you know, the bottom line is that we're all human. So that's what I'm saying. In the Asian culture, there's a lot of discrimination and racism even within our own selves that is really draws concern. And so to me, I see this racism battle as a huge uphill. Yeah. Not only within our own organization, but beyond that, which you and I have dealt with before on various issues. Yeah. But the beauty of it, though, I'm continue the work and continue the passions because I believe in it. You're right where there's a lot of these backroom deals that are done, and you're right about the African American ways, in-your-face confrontation, you know. You know, it's funny because during the Chinese tasing incident, which I know I was going to come up as well.
Might as well. Let's get it out of the way.
Is talking about, you know, I saw some people from various people in the community saying, well, the Chinese are a loosely organized community group, or the Asian Americans are a loosely organized group. They don't support each other.
Yeah, right. Loosely, I don't think so. You don't know what you're talking about there.
Well, the thing is that we put on the Asian celebration.
Please.
I mean, 25 years of that, all Asian groups work together. We're a very well-organized group, work very tightly together. Yeah. The tasing incident was one that, I mean, I don't understand what do they want from us. What do they want us to create an uproar? Do they want us out in front of City Hall picketing with signs? Right. You know, yelling at cars they pass by, banging on drums? I mean, does that mean that we're an organized group and that we're out there fighting for it the right way? In my opinion, no. culturally, we don't take confrontation on that way. And you know the way that I've worked, and you've seen me the way I work, because I'm very diplomatic. You know, I'm very diplomatic, and I ask a lot of questions, because the question is that I just want to understand, and I want to know. And it doesn't mean that, you know, I guess it's kind of funny because someone titled me as the Ninja of the Night joke, was because I do talk to a lot of the city people, to the police chief, other people, but I do it behind the scenes. I don't need to do it in the publicity. I'm not there for the public eye. I'm not there to put on a show. I'm not there to become a politician. You know, I'm not there for any of that. My bottom line is that I'm the kind of person who wants to get something done, accomplished. I think this this group that had dealt with the media and the hazing incident with Bobby Lee and other people, they did a great job. Their goal was essentially to bring awareness. Their goal was to get the city and the police to say, hey, you know, there was obvious mistakes here. Address them. And that was their goal, which was great. My goal is a little bit different. That's kind of why I'm the kind of in the shadows, behind the scene kind of guy. My goal was, I'm concerned about the students. You know, the city has their own issues, has their own problem. I can't
seem
solve
to
that.
have been missed, and not really centered in the press at all. And I know that was a concern.
Yeah, the concern is the students. My concern is how are they doing? What is their well-being?
Welcome to America, yo.
You know,
5 hours.
Let their parents know that they're being supported here. They have people here that care for them. We don't need to talk about the case. We don't need. My bottom line is, how are these kids doing now? How are they fitting in? Are they doing okay? How's school going? That was my only concern. You know, to blame the police chief, to blame the officer warden, to blame the city or whoever else may be, that's great. Blame all you want to blame. But like I said before in this meeting, I'm talking about providing solutions. If you give me something, if you have a meeting with me, you want to talk about solutions, how to solve the problems, what happened again, I'll sit here all day. If you want to invite me to a meeting and sit there to complain about issues all day, excuse me, I'll leave the meeting while I can. That's not my style. And so in this situation, though, the other bottom line is, hello, property managers? Where did the situation start from? Where did the real problem start from? Of course, the police have policy procedure issues that they need to review and revisit, okay? But also, the property management company has policy procedure that they should review and revisit as well. You know, so I mean, the bottom line is that I'm not so sure about how it's being dealt with. I'm not very comfortable because I don't speak a Romance language per se. You know, there's a lot of flaws there. I mean, the taser video clearly shows the guy is holding a blanket with 2 hands, clearly exposed. But yet, in the story that people don't know, the media didn't cover, is that Officer Warden said in his police report, which I personally reviewed with my own eyes, says, I either was tripped, my leg was swept away from me by so-and-so. Swept away? You're alone in the room. Or he fell. So in other words, he implied that because he was Chinese, he knew martial arts. That was what he was trying to get to. And that either that or he tripped somehow and didn't know how he fell, and as he was trying to get up, someone came at him. Well, how does someone come at you when their hands on a blanket, number one, okay? And number two, if someone kicked my legs out from underneath me, or let's say I tripped and stubbed my toe, whatever, I'm going to feel an impact point somewhere, correct? So I'll know if my legs were swept away from me. I'll know if I tripped on the ground. But yet, Officer Warren doesn't recall. And that was the most crucial moment. You don't recall what happened? You know, I asked Mr. Chief Kearns, I said, as a police officer, you know, I said to him, I said, Mr. Kearns, if someone had directly put a gun to your head, for example, could you recall every moment that happened? Because as police officers, they're trained to recall details. And he's told me, absolutely I could. And then so, well, why couldn't Officer Warden do the same thing? Why couldn't he not recall exactly detail what exactly happened? You know, and I've seen reports from both officers, and they don't actually coincide either. So the point being is that I'm not going to get into to blast them. The police officers doing their job. My personal opinion, EPD does a great job. Honestly, they do. Did they make a mistake here? I think it's a mistake. It's a human error. Bad judgment call. Whatever you want to call it, fine. But I've seen EPD do other work. They did a phenomenal job. You know, I had someone break into my business before, and they did a great job following up on that. I mean, they do great work. It's about policy procedure. It's about the situation. And in the very beginning, people want to call it a race issue. Maybe Warden doesn't like Chinese people. It's like, come on, people, don't not throw the race card in there. I hate that when it happens.
Officer Warden cannot pass the paper bag test himself.
But the bottom line is that I think there's a human error, it's a mistake. They're trying to remedy the situation the best that they can. And the bottom line is that my goal is to get action done, get something done behind the scenes, and that's what I do the most. I like to make things happen. I don't need to be in limelight and publicity, and I want to see resolution to things.
If you haven't considered this already, because I know you kind of alluded to it, in the early work of CABA, there's a whole welcome wagon piece here that's missing.
Absolutely.
In terms of collaboration with the university. All right. If you know that you're having a Chinese student, all right, coming, contact us so that we can show them the ropes of living in Eugene, and things like this don't happen.
Yeah, and we have been in discussions with the university already. Not only CABA, but a variety of the organizations all around are going to be having this, but especially with AEI, the American English Institute. Many of the Asian organizations are going to come together, and we're going to have this welcoming committee, as you say. And so this idea has been brought up, and we're actually implementing that concept. Not only that, but we're also talking about creating a triage team with the police department, saying, hey, if you have situations like this, there's a team of people here that can support you. We're volunteers, community members that can speak the language, so to say, whatever it may be. We're more than happy to assist you in the other way that we can. So we're taking the right steps to alleviate the potential possibility of this happening again. Of course, won't ever solve it. But we're always looking for ideas and concepts of how to make that happen.
Can you comment on our work? Our work with UCC, the United Coalition of Color, basically, which is organized around mostly dealing with a particular county agency, and also by extension the county, and probably will branch out to other work too. So y'all who think that you're safe, watch out. But basically, one of the things that I found historic, of not only about the whole tasing thing, because speaking just as an observer and a long-time ally, it's like I have never seen the Asian community this angry about, and mobilized. And I've also, with our UCC work, never seen a multi-ethnic coalition this organized either, around a common issue. So, the learning process about, how you put together a coalition like that that's focused and asking tough questions and having some answers, because I definitely like the lion dance thing, and all the other cultural technologies that we have, which they haven't seen our cards yet in terms of what those things represent, I think is one of the more exciting parts, of our work.
Well, I think the United Coalition of Color is a great organization I'm proud to be part of. The direction that we're going is the necessity of a direction. We're talking about the youth and cultural competency here. And not only multiple issues, but we have to understand that systematically many institutions see diversity as a black and white issue.
Yes, right.
But diversity does not mean black and white issue.
Right.
It's a much larger issue. We talk about the Native Americans, the Asians, the Latinos. It can go on and on. And I can, for me, as you see my experience with this group, is that I'm the kind of guy who asks a lot of questions. And my advantage for me, I think, is that I'm the new guy. Not meaning that I'm new to confrontation, but I have a clean slate, meaning that I don't understand all the inner workings, the details. I haven't been tarnished or so-called, some people say toxic or burned.
Right.
But I come in there with a lot of questions, because the more that we understand the situation, the better we are able to tackle the situation. Fortunately, these other organizations that we're talking about hopefully see us as an ally and as a tool to kind of springboard off of that, to really understand what issues that we face, so we don't have to go back to these same issues again. We don't want to come back and readdress these past issues.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, these issues that we're facing and we're talking about challenging are things that have been around for years.
This seems to be
years.
Well, just so I say it on the record, this is the conversation we should have been having with this agency in '94.
Sure, absolutely. I understand that.
Yeah.
But really, here is that I want to see other agencies understand and see this group as not an enemy, but as an ally, as a working relationship moving forward. And talk about marriage here. And that's really my main focus, is the children. Internal politics, personal issues with other people, all that kind of stuff is all on the fray for me.
Yeah.
You know, I understand, you know, maybe they don't like you, maybe they don't like me, whatever it may be, but the bottom line is the children of the future. How are our children going to be handled in the future? How are they going to be educated? You know, what opportunities are they going to be given? You know, I have a 3.5-year-old son that will be growing up in this community. The fundamentals that we lay down today will benefit the children of tomorrow.
Yeah. And
that's going to be the most crucial, important aspect of everything that we do. So, I mean, this coalition is great because this is the first time we have truly seen a unified group, you know, a unified front. And that's a part of Eugene again.
Yeah.
In Portland, would you see this happening in Portland?
No.
Probably not. I probably don't see that. And again, this probably go back to the race issues like I said before. Asians, African Americans, Latinos, they all do their own thing.
Yeah.
Here is a unified front. I think we're going to make a lot of history. I make a lot of headways, and I'm probably part of the group.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to leave it at there. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark, for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.
If you like what you've seen, email us at liveclass@lanecc.edu. Put DiversiTV in the subject line and tell a friend. Until then, go well, stay well.